The stars looked cold through the window of the diplomatic ship. President Park Yuna stood alone in the observation room, her hands clasped behind her back. She was a small woman with short black hair and eyes that had seen too much in the past 3 days. Sleep had become a stranger to her. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw the burning cities. She heard the screams of 14 million people who would never speak again. The ship was called Horizon's Edge, and it was the finest vessel humanity had ever built for peaceful purposes. It carried no weapons, only the hope that words could accomplish what guns could not. But Yuna knew better. She had learned long ago that hope was a luxury that leaders could not afford. The door behind her slid open with a soft hiss. Colonel Han Taiho walked in, his footsteps heavy on the metal floor. He was a tall man with a scar running down his left cheek, a reminder of battles fought on distant worlds. He had been protecting Yuna for 7 years now, and he could read her moods better than anyone. "We will arrive at the council station in 4 hours," he said. "The crew is ready. The delegation is prepared." Yuna did not turn around. "And what about you, Taiho? Are you prepared?" The colonel was quiet for a moment. "I am prepared to follow you into whatever comes next. That is all I have ever been prepared for." A small smile crossed Yuna's face, though it did not reach her eyes. "You should have been a poet instead of a soldier. Poets do not get to carry guns," Taiho replied. "I prefer guns." The door opened again, and Foreign Minister Li Jian entered the room. She was younger than both of them, barely 40 years old, but her mind was sharper than any blade. She carried a data tablet in her hands, and her fingers never stopped moving across its surface. "I have been trying to contact the council for 3 days," Jian said. "Not one of the 17 species has responded to our requests for information. They summoned us, but they will not tell us why." Yuna finally turned to face her ministers. Her expression was calm, but there was fire burning behind her eyes. "They do not think they need to explain themselves to us. To them, humanity is just a young species that crawled out of one small planet 200 years ago. They see us as children who should be grateful to sit at the edge of their table. Then why summon us at all?" Taiho asked. "Because they want something," Jian answered. "The council never does anything without a reason. They have ruled this galaxy for 12,000 years by being patient and careful. Every action they take serves a purpose." Yuna walked to the center of the room, where a holographic display showed the approaching council station. It was massive, a ring of metal and glass orbiting a dying red star. The station was older than human civilization itself, built by species that had mastered space travel while humanity was still learning to make fire. "They want to put us in our place," Yuna said quietly. "They want to remind us that we are small and they are large. They want to make sure we understand the rules of their galaxy." She waved her hand, and the hologram changed. Now it showed images of destruction. Cities on fire. Ships exploding in the darkness of space. Bodies floating among the wreckage of space stations. The colony world of New Sol, reduced to ash and memory. "But they made a mistake," Yuna continued. 3 days ago, someone attacked our colonies. 14 million of our people were killed in 6 hours. Men, women, children. Entire families erased from existence. And the weapons that did this, the ships that carried out these attacks, they all carried council technology. Jian stopped typing on her tablet. "We still do not have proof that the council itself ordered the attack. It could have been one faction acting alone. It could have been. It does not matter," Yuna interrupted. "Whether it was the whole council or just one part of it, the attack came from their direction. Their weapons. Their ships. Their responsibility." She turned to look at Taiho. "Show me the fleet positions." The colonel stepped forward and activated another hologram. This one showed a map of the galaxy. But it was different from any map the Council had ever seen. Hidden among the stars were thousands of small dots, each one representing a human warship. They were positioned around the homeworlds of every Council species, silent and waiting. The fleet moved into position 12 hours ago, Taiho reported. They are holding at the edge of sensor range. The Council does not know they are there. Jian looked at the map with wide eyes. Madam President, if we reveal this fleet, we are declaring ourselves as a threat to the entire Council. They will never trust us again. Yuna laughed softly, but there was no humor in the sound. Trust. They killed 14 million of our people. Trust died 3 days ago, along with everyone on New Seoul. She walked closer to the window and looked out at the stars again. Somewhere out there, her husband's family had lived on one of the destroyed colonies. Her nieces and nephews, gone in a flash of light and fire. She had not allowed herself to cry yet. There would be time for tears later, after justice was done. The Council thinks they summoned us here to be scolded like naughty children, she said. They think they will lecture us about staying in our place, about following their rules, about being grateful for whatever scraps they throw our way. She turned to face Taiho and Jian, and in that moment, they saw something in her eyes that made both of them stand straighter. It was the look of a woman who had nothing left to lose and everything to fight for. They are wrong, Yuna said. I am not here to listen. I am here to deliver a message that this galaxy will never forget. Humanity does not bow. Humanity does not break. And humanity does not forgive those who harm our home. The ship continued its journey toward the Council station, carrying within it the spark that would set the galaxy on fire. The high chamber of the Galactic Council was built to make visitors feel small. The ceiling rose so high that it disappeared into darkness. The walls were made of black stone that absorbed light and sound. 17 platforms surrounded a circular floor in the center, each one holding the representative of an ancient species that had ruled the stars for thousands of years. President Park Yuna walked into this room alone. Her footsteps echoed in the silence as she crossed the floor. She could feel 17 pairs of eyes watching her, studying her, judging her. Some of those eyes were made of crystal. Some glowed with inner light. Some belonged to creatures so old that they had watched stars being born and dying. She stopped in the center of the room and stood perfectly still. Supreme Arbiter. Vorlith looked down at her from the highest platform. He was enormous, an insectoid creature with 6 legs and mandibles that clicked together when he spoke. His body was covered in ceremonial medals that had been worn by council leaders for 8,000 years. Human representative, Vorlith began, his voice echoing through the chamber like thunder. You stand before the Galactic Council to answer for the crimes of your species. Your people have violated the territorial expansion protocols. Your colonies have spread into the Kepler expanse without permission. I am not here to answer for anything. The words cut through the air like a knife. Every creature in the room went still. In 12,000 years, no one had ever interrupted the Supreme Arbiter. The silence that followed was so complete that Yuna could hear her own heartbeat. Vorlith's mandibles clicked rapidly, a sign of confusion and anger. You dare to. I dare, Yuna said, her voice steady and cold. Because 3 days ago, while you were preparing this little meeting to scold us like children, someone attacked our home. Someone killed 14 million of our people. And I have come here to find out which one of you is responsible. She raised her hand, and a holographic display appeared above her head. The images showed burning cities, destroyed space stations, ships exploding in the void of space. The faces of the dead scrolled past, one after another, a river of human lives that had been ended without warning or mercy. New Seoul, Yuna said. Population, 3 million, gone. New Bazan. Population, 2 million, gone. The orbital station, Evans Gate, population 500,000. Gone. She turned slowly, looking up at each platform in turn. Some of the representatives looked away. Others met her gaze with expressions that were impossible to read. 7 colonies destroyed in 6 hours, Una continued. 14 million dead. And the weapons that did this, the ships that carried out these attacks, they all match Council technology. Your weapons. Your ships. Representative Mothran of the Valkyrie Federation rose on his 6 legs. His skin was covered in bioluminescent patterns that flashed angry red. This is an outrage. The Council does not attack member species. We are a body of peace, and we are not a member species. Una interrupted again. We were never invited to join your council. We were kept as observers, allowed to watch but never to speak. Our trade was restricted. Our expansion was limited. And now, apparently, even that was not enough for you. Ambassador Seleth of the Kroner Dominion uncoiled her serpentine body and hissed softly. If there was an attack on your colonies, it was not done by the Council. Perhaps pirates or rogue elements or pirates with quantum torpedoes. The doors of the chamber opened, and Colonel Han Tai-ho walked in, followed by Admiral Choi Minji. Both of them wore their military uniforms, their metal shining in the dim light. Pirates with ships that match your collective defense fleet down to the molecular structure of the hull plating. Admiral Choi activated another hologram. This one showed pieces of wreckage recovered from the debris fields around the destroyed colonies. We found these in the ruins of New Seoul, manufacturing stamps from the Valkyrie Federation. Navigation computers with Council encryption codes. And this, she zoomed in on one particular piece, is a command authorization signal that traces directly back to this station. The Valkyrie representative's lights flickered uncertainly. Several other representatives began speaking at once, their voices mixing together in a wave of denial and confusion. Supreme Arbiter Vorlith raised one massive limb, and silence fell once more. He looked down at Una with eyes that held the wisdom of millennia. Even if what you say is true, what do you expect us to do? The Council has ruled this galaxy for 12,000 years. We have brought peace to 100 species. We have ended wars that lasted for centuries. What leverage do you think a 200-year-old species has against that? Una smiled. It was a small smile, cold and sharp like the edge of a blade. That is exactly what I wanted to hear, she said. I wanted to hear you admit that you think we are nothing, that you believe we have no power, no strength, no way to make you answer for what was done to us. She took a step forward, her eyes never leaving Vorlith's face. Because now I get to show you how wrong you are. For 200 years, humanity has been watching, learning, preparing for this moment, when we would need to stand up to creatures who see us as insects to be crushed. Her smile widened, but her eyes remained cold. You wanted to know what leverage we have? Let me show you. The chamber fell into chaos. Representatives who had ruled their species for centuries were shouting over each other. Some demanded that Una be arrested. Others called for immediate military action against the human delegation. The noise filled the ancient hall like a storm. President Park Una stood in the center of it all, unmoved. She waited. She had learned long ago that patience was a weapon more powerful than any gun. While the council members argued and threatened, she simply stood there with her hands clasped behind her back, watching them reveal their fear, and they were afraid. She could see it in the way their voices grew louder, in the way they looked at each other for support, in the way they refused to look directly at her. For the first time in 12,000 years, they were facing something they did not understand. They were facing a species that refused to play by their rules. Supreme Arbiter Vorlith finally managed to restore order. He raised both of his upper limbs and released a sound that shook the walls of the chamber. Every representative fell silent and returned to their platform. "This is a serious accusation," Vorlith said, his voice controlled but carrying an edge of anger. "You claim that the Council attacked your colonies. You show us wreckage and weapon signatures. But this proves nothing. Any sufficiently advanced criminal organization could fake such evidence." "You are right," Una replied calmly. "Evidence can be faked. That is why I did not come here to argue about evidence." She turned to Admiral Choi Minji and nodded. The Admiral stepped forward and activated a new holographic display. This one was different from anything the Council had seen before. It showed a map of the galaxy, but instead of the familiar territories and trade routes, this map revealed something else entirely. Hidden installations appeared in places the Council had marked as empty. Shipyards floated in nebulae the Council sensors could not penetrate. Research stations orbited black holes where no one had thought to look. "For 200 years, Una began, her voice carrying to every corner of the chamber, humanity has watched this Council. We watched you divide the galaxy among yourselves like children sharing a toy. We watched you deny young species the right to grow. We watched you keep us dependent on your technology by limiting what we could develop on our own." She walked slowly around the speaking floor, her footsteps echoing in the now silent chamber. "What you did not watch was what we were doing in response. You looked at our small fleet, our modest colonies, our limited technology, and you saw exactly what you wanted to see. A weak species. A young species. A species that posed no threat to your ancient order." Representative Mothran's lights flickered. "What is this? What are those installations?" "Those," Admiral Choi answered, "are 70 years of secret preparation. Shipyards capable of building vessels that your sensors cannot detect. Research facilities developing weapons your scientists have never imagined. Training centers for soldiers who have been preparing for this moment their entire lives." Colonel Han Tayo stepped forward. "Every piece of technology you sold us, we took apart and learned how to make ourselves. Every restriction you placed on us, we found a way around. Every weapon you created, we built something better." Ambassador Seleth hissed with displeasure. "You expect us to believe that a 200-year-old species has somehow surpassed civilizations that are thousands of years older? This is nothing but empty boasting." Una turned to face her. "I expected exactly that response, which is why I did not come here with just words." She raised her hand, and the hologram changed again. Now it showed 17 planets, each one immediately recognizable. These were the homeworlds of every species represented in the Council chamber. And around each planet in perfect formation were hundreds of human warships. The silence that followed was absolute. 3 hours ago, Una said, our fleet moved into position around your homeworlds. Not to attack. We are not here to start a war. We are here to demonstrate a simple truth that you have been too blind to see. Lieutenant Kan Subin, the communications officer aboard Horizon's Edge, transmitted visual confirmation from each position. On screens throughout the chamber, images appeared showing human ships holding station in the skies of 17 alien worlds. Ships that had slipped past every defense system, every sensor network, every patrol fleet. Supreme Arbiter Vorlith's mandibles stopped clicking. For the first time since the chamber was built, he had no words. You thought you were dealing with children, Una continued. You were wrong. You were dealing with survivors. With a species that spent its entire history fighting itself, that destroyed its own world and had to crawl out of the ashes to reach the stars. We do not give up easily. We do not forgive easily. And we certainly do not forget when someone attacks our home. Foreign Minister Li Jian stepped forward, her data tablet showing a stream of incoming messages. Our ships are being contacted by local defense forces. They are asking for instructions. They want to know if they should attack. Tell them to hold position, Yuna ordered. We did not come here to fire the first shot, but we will absolutely fire the last one. She turned back to face the 17 platforms, looking at each representative in turn. Now, she said softly, shall we discuss what really happened to our colonies? Or do you need more proof that we are no longer the weak species you thought we were? The council chamber had become very quiet. The representatives who had shouted and threatened just minutes ago now sat still on their platforms. Some of them were communicating silently with their homeworlds, receiving reports of human ships that had adhered in their skies like ghosts. Others simply stared at the holographic display, trying to understand how everything they believed about humanity had been so completely wrong. President Park Yuna gave them time to process what they were seeing. She understood that for many of them, this moment was shattering a worldview that had existed for thousands of years. The Council had always been the supreme power in the galaxy. No young species had ever challenged them. No one had ever had the strength to challenge them until now. Representative Mothrin was the first to speak. His bioluminescent skin had turned a pale blue, the color of fear among his people. How is this possible? Our sensors, our patrols, our defense networks. Nothing detected your ships approaching our worlds. Admiral Choi Minji answered him. 70 years ago, we captured one of your sensor buoys and brought it back to Earth for study. It took us 20 years to understand how it worked. It took us another 10 years to find a way to fool it. The stealth technology on our ships is not just good enough to avoid detection. It is specifically designed to be invisible to your equipment. But the resources, Ambassador Celis said, her serpentine body coiling tighter on her platform. Building a fleet of this size would require more materials than your colonies could possibly produce. We have been watching your trade, your mining operations. You have been watching what we wanted you to see, Yuna interrupted. While your observers counted the ships in our public shipyards, we were building 10 times as many in places you never thought to look. Every asteroid belt you considered worthless, we turned into a mining operation. Every nebula you marked as dangerous, we used as cover for our construction projects. She walked to the edge of the speaking floor and looked up at the Supreme Arbiter. You made a mistake that powerful people often make. You believed that because you could not imagine us as a threat, we could never become one. You looked at our short history and saw weakness. You did not see what that history actually taught us. Colonel Hantayo stepped forward. Humanity has been at war with itself for most of its existence. We have fought over land, over resources, over ideas, over nothing at all. We have destroyed each other with weapons that grew more terrible with each generation. We have survived plagues that killed half our population. We have survived disasters that nearly ended our civilization. And every time we fell, Yuna continued, we got back up. Every time we were knocked down, we learned from it. Every time someone told us we could not do something, we found a way to do it anyway. That is what you failed to understand about humanity. We are not strong because we have never faced hardship. We are strong because hardship is all we have ever known. She turned to face the entire chamber, her voice rising. When we first came to the stars, we were excited. We thought we would find other species who would welcome us, teach us, help us grow. Instead, we found the Council. We found 17 ancient civilizations who looked at us and saw nothing but a nuisance to be managed. You gave us restricted trade agreements. You limited where we could expand. You denied us membership in your council. Her eyes grew cold. And then, when that was not enough, someone decided to solve the human problem permanently. Someone launched an attack that killed 14 million innocent people. Someone thought they could burn us out of the galaxy like weeds from a garden. Foreign Minister Li Jian stepped forward with her data tablet. We have spent the last 3 days analyzing the attack patterns. the weapon signatures, and the communication signals from the attacking fleet. We know that the order did not come from the full council. We know that this was the work of a smaller group, acting without official approval. Yuna nodded slowly, which means some of you in this chamber knew about the attack. Some of you approved it. Some of you thought you were solving a problem that has been bothering the council for years. She began walking around the chamber, looking at each representative carefully. I can see it in your faces. Most of you are genuinely shocked by what happened. You did not know about the attack until right now. But some of you are not surprised at all. Some of you are just angry that you got caught. The Volcari representative's lights flickered rapidly. The Kroner ambassador looked away. A few others shifted uncomfortably on their platforms. I am not going to demand confessions right now, Yuna continued. I am not going to force you to point fingers at each other while our ships watch from your skies. That would be cruel, and despite what you may think of us, humans are not cruel without reason. She returned to the center of the floor and stood tall. But I am going to give you a choice. The same kind of choice that humanity has faced again and again throughout our history. You can choose to work with us, to help us find the people responsible for this attack and bring them to justice. Or you can choose to stand against us, to protect the ones who ordered the deaths of 14 million people. A voice dropped to barely above a whisper, but somehow it carried to every corner of the massive chamber. Choose carefully, because the next few hours will determine whether humanity becomes the Council's greatest ally or its worst enemy. And I promise you, you do not want to know what we are capable of when we decide someone is our enemy. The Council chamber remained silent for a long moment after President Park Yuna finished speaking. The 17 representatives looked at each other, communicating through glances and subtle gestures that carried meanings developed over thousands of years of shared politics. Some were clearly frightened. Others were angry. A few seemed almost impressed. Supreme Arbiter Vorlith finally rose to his full height. His massive insectoid body cast a shadow over the speaking floor, and his ceremonial metals clinked softly as he moved. You have made your point, human. We understand that you are not the weak species we believed you to be. But threatening the homeworlds of 17 civilizations is an act of war. Even if some among us were responsible for the attack on your colonies, you cannot expect the entire council to simply surrender to your demands. Yuna looked up at him without fear. I do not expect you to surrender. I expect you to negotiate. There is a difference. She walked to the edge of the speaking floor and clasped her hands behind her back. Let me be very clear about what humanity wants. We want justice for the 14 million people who were killed. We want the individuals responsible for ordering that attack to face trial. And we want the rules of this galaxy to change so that something like this can never happen again. And the ships around our homeworlds? Ambassador Seleth asked, her voice cold with barely controlled anger. We'll remain in position until we have an agreement, Yuna replied. Not to attack, not to threaten, simply to remind everyone in this chamber that humanity can no longer be ignored or dismissed. Admiral Choi Minji stepped forward. Madam President, I have received word from our intelligence division. They have identified the faction responsible for the attack. The chamber went still. Every representative leaned forward, waiting. Yuna nodded. Tell us. The Admiral activated a hologram that showed a group of 5 species emblems. The attack was planned and executed by a coalition of 5 council members who call themselves the Preservation Group. They believed that humanity was growing too fast, expanding too quickly, and would eventually threaten the balance of power in the galaxy. They decided to eliminate the threat before it could grow any larger. Colonel Hantayo pointed to the emblems one by one. The Volcari Federation provided the ships. The Chrono Dominion provided the weapons. 3 other species provided funding, intelligence, and political cover. Representative Mothran's lights turned bright white, the color of shame among his people. This is... I did not know. I swear I did not know. We believe you, Una said. Our intelligence suggests that the preservation group acted without the knowledge of the full council. They thought they were protecting the galaxy from a future threat. Instead, they created an enemy that will never forget what was done. She turned to face the 5 representatives whose species had been named. Some of them looked defiant. Others looked terrified. Ambassador Seleth simply stared at the floor, her body completely still. Here are humanity's terms, Una announced. First, the individuals who planned and authorized the attack will be handed over to human authorities. They will face trial in our courts, under our laws. Not because we do not trust council justice, but because the victims were our people, and our people deserve to see justice done in their name. She took a breath and continued. Second, all territorial restrictions on human expansion are lifted immediately. We will colonize where we choose, when we choose, without needing permission from anyone. The days of treating humanity like children who need supervision are over. Third, humanity will be granted full membership in the Galactic Council. Not as observers, not as junior partners, as equals with all the rights and responsibilities that come with that status. We will have a vote on every decision. We will have a voice in every discussion. Fourth, and this is not negotiable, the Council will establish a new policy regarding young species. No longer will new civilizations be held back and restricted. They will be welcomed as partners and helped to grow. What happened to humanity will never happen to anyone else. Supreme Arbiter Volith clicked his mandibles slowly. These are significant demands. Some of them would require changing laws that have existed for thousands of years. Yes, Una agreed. They would. And I understand that change is difficult for civilizations as old as yours. But consider the alternative. You can accept these terms and gain a powerful new ally. Or you can reject them and spend the next century watching human ships in your skies, wondering when we will decide that patience is no longer serving our interests. She softened her voice slightly. We do not want to rule you. We do not want to destroy you. Humanity has always dreamed of reaching the stars and finding friends among them. We wanted to be part of something larger than ourselves. You are the ones who denied us that dream. You are the ones who treated us as a problem to be managed instead of a partner to be welcomed. Foreign Minister Li Jian stepped forward. We are offering you a chance to correct that mistake, to build something new together. A galaxy where all species, young and old, can grow and prosper side by side. The chamber was silent as the representatives considered the offer. Una could see calculations being made behind ancient eyes. She could see fear and hope and anger all mixing together as 17 civilizations tried to understand a future they had never imagined. Finally, Supreme Arbiter Vorlith bowed his massive head. It was a gesture of respect that had not been offered to a younger species in 8,000 years. The Council will deliberate on your terms, he said. But I believe I speak for many when I say that we have underestimated humanity. Perhaps it is time for the old ways to change. Una nodded once. You have 24 hours to reach a decision. After that, we begin our own deliberations. I hope, for all our sakes, that we can find a path forward together. She turned and walked out of the high chamber, Colonel Han and Admiral Choi following behind her. The doors sealed with a heavy boom, leaving 17 ancient species to contemplate a universe that had just changed forever. As she walked back to her ship, Una allowed herself one small moment of emotion. A tear rolled down her cheek for the 14 million who would never see this day. For her family members who had died on New Sol. For every human who had sacrificed to bring them to this moment. Madame President, Taiho said quietly. "Are you all right?" She wiped a tear away and straightened her shoulders. "I am now," she replied. "For the first time since this started, I believe we actually have a chance." Behind her, in the council chamber, the debate had already begun. A new era was starting, and humanity, once dismissed as insignificant, had announced its arrival to the galaxy in a way that no one would ever forget.